Hi, this is Reggie with the Noem Rogan campaign. Today on Noem's Newcomers, I will be interviewing 2019 Communicator of the Year recipient for the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations, a publisher of over 4,000 articles and 4 books, multi-award-winning writer and editor, cancel culture survivor, and my friend, Chris Jossart. How are you doing today?
Reggie, thanks for having me. I'm doing terrific. I'm just humbled to be here.
Awesome.
You bet.
Well, touching on that last subject, what was your experience with the cancel culture? We don't get a lot of that here, but what did you see?
Yeah, so, cancel culture is really predicated on hate, sadly. The ones doing the cancel culturing, if you will, of individuals it's a wave of hate. And sadly, we're seeing a lot of companies, a lot of politicians who are driving this cancel culture, a lot of pop culture. They're the ones who are on the other side of the fence, always talking about conservatives and Christians as being the ones filled with hate. This whole thing with former President Trump, they're actually the ones engrossed in so much hypocrisy, because when you cancel culture someone, you're destroying lives. And you're destroying lives over one simple reason, Reggie. We just want to have a conversation. What happened to debate in this country? We don't even debate anymore. I think it would be great if we returned to the old roots of having honest, healthy debates, whether it's at the academic level, at the political level, or at the business level. Because we learn to leverage our strengths and appreciate and respect other people and their strengths. We learn that we're all humble. We all have weaknesses. All of us don't have the answers, but cancel culture is really a sick problem in this country, and it's so anti-American.
So tell us a bit about what did you see from where you're from, and how did that bring you to South Dakota?
Yeah, so, I've been working in the trenches for about 28 years with the mainstream media. So, when you work in public relations and marketing, a lot of people don't understand this, but you're really working hand in hand with the media because you're a storyteller. They're storytellers too. So they're always looking for stories. So in marketing and PR, you're a storyteller. I've been blessed to do all these articles and books. And just a little side note, it was rather sweet, let's just say bittersweet, when my last book came out and it bumped Rachel Maddow out of the #1 spot. Kindle version. It's a book called Media Man's Memoir, Hate and Crime Inside America's Newsrooms. And I cracked a 3-year investigation open on what's really happening inside our media newsrooms. And, Rachel Maddow being, sadly, and I pray for her. I really do. I always pray for the opposition and the enemy. But when you are that filled with hate and you are that anti-American, it was a bittersweet thing, because all I did after working with media for 27 years is I asked 2 simple questions on social media one day. I asked a question, and I still to this day do not have an answer. There was a lady in Chicago who was marching in a very peaceful pro-life parade back in 2020. And she was wearing a pro-life sweatshirt. She ended up in jail for not doing anything wrong. She was just thrown in jail because the mayor in that city did not like her agenda. And I simply asked the question on social media, why didn't Black Lives Matter stand up for this lady? No answer whatsoever. And the other thing is, we're seeing a lot of persecution, sadly, Reggie, of Christians around the world. And you have to really dig super, super ultra deep on like the 27th page of Google. Of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but why is that not a concern in our country and in our world? Why does that not get any media attention whatsoever? Those 2 questions to this day, I have never received an answer to, but what I did receive was cancel culture. I was called every name in the book: white, racist, supremacist, homophobe, this and that, up and down. People don't know who you are when they cancel you, Reggie. I have had, working in education for 27 years and publishing all these articles, do you know how many of them were of the ethnic variety, of ethnic descent, and helping people of all walks of life get a leg up in this world? That doesn't matter to people who cancel culture you. So it's a sad state of affairs that's going on. It happened to me combined with the media and higher education. So my wife and I, back at the time when this happened, living in Wisconsin, which is sadly a blue state, Love the state, born and raised there, have family, have a lot of great memories. But we were watching Governor Noem when we lived back in Wisconsin a couple years ago. I'm sorry, it was actually last year. And she was interviewed, I believe, on one of the media networks at night. It might have been Fox or something. But we just happened to be flipping through the channels, Reggie, and she was saying something like, I really support independent critical thinking and people who can think for themselves, less government, less indoctrination in our public schools, support for our veterans. My wife and I simultaneously looked at each other, Reggie, and we said, where do we sign up for this? How fast can we pack our bags to move to South Dakota? And that's how that whole thing happened.
Absolutely, and a big part of that support for Governor Noem is what caused us to become such fast friends. So what kind of inspired your vision for Noem's Newcomers? You're kind of the brainchild behind this, the Preserving America in South Dakota. What did you see out there that provoked you to really lean your efforts and your energy into pushing this Noem's Newcomers?
Yeah, well, as I go back to the decision my wife and I made to move out here, my wife has spent 30 years as an educator, helping people get their high school credential no matter what happened to them in life. She really did God's work for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And she's retired. And so we were looking at a great place to move. And I want to say that the inspiration behind this, we just got a little tired of seeing certain things happen around not just Wisconsin, but the Midwest, where criminals were not getting prosecuted. So what they would do is they would just turn around the next day after being slapped in the wrist and then go drive through parades and kill innocent people. Politicians being pandered by the teachers' unions, which, as we know, the teachers' unions, they don't care about our children's education. So when we saw what Governor Noem was doing with public education out here, we decided to come to a place where America is still preserved, and that's South Dakota. You can still find America out here. And working with the media for all those years, when we moved out here, I got to thinking, okay, we're not the only two people moving out here. People are moving out here in droves. I wonder why that is, Reggie. So let's get to the bottom. Let's get to the root of why people are moving to South Dakota. I mean, beautiful state, Black Hills, Badlands, lots of tourist attractions. We get all that. But what's the real reason? Mm-hmm. Okay? I mean, it's a lot of people, let's say, move to Florida. Well, the weather's great. It's always warm there. What about South Dakota? So I did a lot of media research. And as I called out in my book, working with the media, you've learned over time that they have an agenda. So I looked up a lot of articles and news stories about the influx of people coming to South Dakota, and I found two primary reasons that were being reported, Reggie. One was that people were being reunited with family. In other words, people were coming back to the state in these tens of thousands to be reunited with family. And I'm like, all right, you liberal media in Sioux Falls and Rapid City and everywhere else in public radio, I'm sorry, the math just doesn't add up there. 2 plus 2 is still 4 in my world. There aren't that many people. That's mathematically impossible to use that as a reason. That means tens of thousands of people left South Dakota and they're coming back to be reunited with family. Well, why is that? So media lie, big time. The second primary reason I found was the economy. Okay, great. That's pure journalism for a rare occasion. Well, then who should be getting credit, or at least partial credit, for a good economy, Reggie? Wouldn't you point back to your governor? I guarantee you if it was a governor with a D next to his or her name, it would be 24/7. They wouldn't be able to stop. So that was the reason that my wife and I wanted to get to the substance of why people are really moving here. It's Governor Kristi Noem. That's why people are moving here. And that story needs to be told, and that's why we sit here today.
Absolutely. So since moving here, what kind of values do you see emulated in South Dakota? Keeping with the Preserving America and South Dakota theme, what do you see that's happening here that isn't happening, that needs to happen in other states?
Great question, because we do pray for our other states. We still want to be the United States of America. First and foremost, less government, more people. I mean, isn't that what the Constitution was all based on? Less government, more people. Secondly, Governor Noem's passion for people being able to exercise common sense. I mean, look at the whole COVID thing. And that's a whole nother topic. But I mean, her leadership here, stellar, exemplary. She didn't freak out. She didn't run around and tell everybody to wear a mask and shut down the whole state. She exercised common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the other thing that we really like about Governor Noem is she's a leader of faith. You know, this whole "In God We Trust" in public schools, and focusing on public schools teaching our children and not indoctrinating them is huge. So those are probably the three biggest characteristics of her leadership that my wife and I are really attracted to.
Absolutely. Well, I went over kind of a large resume for you at the beginning. What was it that got you into writing in the first place?
Just love telling stories. You know, I think there's a lot of stories out there, Reggie, that deserve to be inked, deserve to be broadcast, that unfortunately don't see the light of day simply because the publishing industry is very monopolized. You know, if the old adage of "it's who you know" rings true, it really is resoundingly true in the publishing industry. But there's a lot of great stories out there. So one of the things I did too in working in higher education for many years is I learned a lot of success stories of students finding great internships and inventions and the entrepreneurial spirit. Those are the good news stories that sadly are lost today, because if you turn on the media mob, it's all doom and gloom, anti-America. So just wanted to be able to give people a voice to tell their story, and that's what got me into writing.
Absolutely. Well, as part of our South Dakota culture, we never see ourselves as victims, more or less cancel culture survivors. So can you tell me, how can we fight back against this cancel culture?
Yeah, I think what we need to look at when it comes to cancel culture is we need to remain steadfast when it comes to just opening or welcoming debate. Public debate. Look how much we can learn from one another, from one another's views in a respectful platform. I also want to challenge our employers, Reggie. The employers, not just, you know, South Dakota, because it's not that big of an issue here as it is in other parts of the country, but where a lot of people are being cancel cultured, I'd like to challenge employers out there to be bold, to be truthful, not to conform, and look at rehiring these people who have lost their jobs for simply asking relevant questions, being truthful. Because I tell you, the majority of people who have been through cancel culture are the hardest working people you will find. They're sincere and they're truthful. So I would like to challenge our employers to take a look at rehiring these people back into society, into the workforce.
Oh, absolutely. Was there anything else you want to share with us before we let you go?
I just want to thank you for this opportunity and just remind our viewers that we are truly preserving America here in South Dakota, thanks to Governor Noem and Lieutenant Governor Roden. Let's keep it that way. I got a message for all the wonderful people who've been born and raised here in South Dakota. Embrace us, because we're here for you. That's key.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's important to reiterate, you were a big part behind this, the Noem's Newcomers. It was your idea. You came in, you put in the work, you put forth all the sweat, grit, and tears and blood that we need to really get the message out to people. I just wanted to thank you, shake your hand.
I'm honored and blessed to be a part of this.
And we are honored and blessed
awesome
to have you here in South Dakota.
Thanks, Reggie.
Thank you so much for watching today. We'll be tuning in next week when we have our next Noem newcomer. Chris Jossart will be our host from now on. And we look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you so much.